Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be talking about something that honestly can be a little unnerving, even for someone like me who considers himself fairly tech savvy.
Yeah.
We're talking about tech support scams.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Those are scary.
they are, and you've shared this really great document that kind of breaks down how these scams work, like the tactics they use, the psychology behind it, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
So whether you're prepping for a presentation about cybersecurity or you just want to feel more confident online, this is for you. And I got to say, one of the things that really jumped out at me while I was reading this document is how these scammers, they often impersonate these big name companies like Microsoft, Apple, even those antivirus companies we all rely on. I mean, talk about sneaky.
It really is sneaky, and it's really smart on their end because they're tapping into that trust that we already have built up with these big name brands. And you know what's even more interesting is that a lot of times they're leveraging our own anxieties about technology against us, like that fear of viruses, data breaches, our computer crashing all of a sudden. All of that just makes us vulnerable to these manipulations.
Oh, absolutely. It's like they're playing on our deepest, darkest tech fears.
Right.
So let's unpack how these scams actually unfold. I mean, I'm guessing it's not always as simple as like a random phone call, right?
You know, you're absolutely right. It can start with a variety of methods. It could be unsolicited calls. It can be those pop-ups that just appear out of nowhere, or even phishing emails that are cleverly disguised. But that common thread is that initial contact that they're trying to make is designed to really catch you off guard.
And I bet they use some pretty high-pressure tactics too, right?
Oh, you bet. They love to create this sense of urgency. They'll give you all these dire consequences if you don't act immediately. They might say that your computer's infected with a virus that's stealing all your data, that your entire system's about to crash. It's all about getting you to react emotionally instead of logically.
Wow, so it's like they're trying to hijack our common sense with a dose of digital adrenaline.
I love that that's a great way to put it. And once they've got you flustered, that's when they move in for the kill, so to speak. Their next step is usually trying to gain remote access to your computer.
Okay, this is where things start to get really scary. I mean, giving a stranger access to your computer is kind of like handing them the keys to your digital kingdom.
Exactly, and they're really crafty about how they do it. They might trick you into downloading a program that seems harmless. Maybe it's disguised as something else, but it's actually a remote access tool. Or they could convince you to click on a malicious link that gives them like a back door into your system. And sometimes they even resort to just plain old social engineering, using their charm or maybe like some fake authority to persuade you to give up your login credentials.
So once they have access,
Yeah.
is it basically game over? Like what kind of damage are we talking about here?
Well, once they're in, they can do a lot of damage. They can install malware, steal all sorts of your personal information like passwords, bank details, really anything that you've got stored on your computer. They can even lock you out of your own system. And of course, the ultimate goal is usually financial exploitation. They might come up with these fake diagnoses claiming you have all sorts of problems that you don't actually have and then demanding payment to fix those non-existent problems.
It's incredible how elaborate these schemes are.
It really is. And they're always adapting.
Right.
They use current events or even your own personal details that they've gleaned from your online activity to make their scams that much more believable. You remember that recent security update that Microsoft rolled out? Scammers are already using that as a hook, saying that they need to fix some problem that was caused by that update.
It's kind of scary to think that our online activity can be used against us like that.
Yeah.
So it's not just about being tech savvy. It's also about being aware of the psychology that they're using to kind of trick us. So now that we have a sense of how these scams actually work, let's dive into the specific tactics that they use to hook their victims.
Okay, sounds good.
What are some of those?
Well, let's start with impersonating real companies. Like we mentioned earlier, they often pretend to be from well-known companies like Microsoft, Apple, Google, or even your trusted antivirus provider. They might even have websites and phone numbers to back up their claims.
But how can we tell if it's really them or if it's a scammer? I mean, these websites can look so legit these days.
Yeah, they can be really convincing. That's where verification is super important. Don't engage with an unexpected call, email, or pop-up that claims to be tech support. Hang up, close the window, delete the email, and then independently verify their contact information. Find the company's official website and make sure that it's the actual website, not a fake, and call their customer support number directly.
So if someone calls me claiming to be from Microsoft, I should hang up and call Microsoft back using the number on their website.
Exactly, and don't ever click on links or download anything from these unsolicited sources. It's just not worth the risk.
Okay, good point. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Very.
So impersonation is a big one. What other tactics do these scammers use?
Well, another common one is using those alarming pop-up alerts and phishing emails that we talked about earlier. They're really good at triggering your fear response. They bombard you with all these messages and warnings that something bad is about to happen and that you need to take action right now. Like they'll say, your computer's infected with this dangerous virus, that you've been hacked, that your data is about to be completely wiped
It's
clean.
like they're trying to press every single panic button that we have.
That's exactly right. They know that fear can really cloud our judgment and make us much more likely to act impulsively.
So how do we resist that knee-jerk reaction? I mean, it's one thing to know this intellectually, but it's another thing to stay calm when you see that pop up saying that your computer is about to explode.
It's true. This is where understanding the psychology behind these scams can really help. Just remember that legitimate companies, they don't use these scare tactics. They won't send you all these pop-ups and emails demanding that you take immediate action. So if you see something like that, it's a huge red flag.
So impersonation and using those scare tactics are two big ones. What else do these scammers have up their sleeves?
Well, they're also experts at social engineering. They'll use all sorts of psychological manipulation to gain your trust and take advantage of your vulnerabilities. They might try to sound super friendly and helpful, maybe using your name, referencing details about your online activity to make it seem like they know you personally.
That's creepy.
It is. They might say something like, hey, I see you're having trouble with your computer. Don't worry, I'm here to help. It's all about building rapport and making you feel comfortable enough to do what they want you to do.
It's really insidious how they weaponize our desire to trust people and our desire to be helpful.
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes they'll even use all sorts of technical jargon to make themselves sound more credible. They might just overwhelm you with technical terms, or even pretend to be familiar with specific details about your computer or your online activity.
Wait a minute, are you saying they could actually use my online history against me?
Yeah, they can be that sophisticated. They might mention a recent purchase you made or even a news story that you shared on social media. It's all about creating that illusion that they're legitimate and that they have your best interest at heart.
That's seriously unsettling. It's like they're lurking in the shadows of our digital lives, just waiting to pounce.
Yeah, it really highlights the importance of being aware of those psychological tactics that they're using.
Okay, so we've got impersonation, we've got the scare tactics, and we've got social engineering. What else should we be looking out for?
Well, another one is running fake security scans. Once they gain access to your computer, they might show you a scan that's totally fabricated. It'll have all these errors and warnings and make it look like your system is totally compromised and about to collapse.
Oh, that's just devious. They create the problem and then offer to sell you the solution. It's the classic snake oil salesman routine, but for the digital age.
I love that analogy. And once they convince you that your computer's in trouble, they'll offer to fix it for a fee, of course. They might try to sell you unnecessary software subscriptions, all these support services, all while pretending to be your helpful tech savior.
It's crazy how they're able to turn our trust against us. But the good news is, now that we're aware of these tactics, we're less likely to fall for them. Knowledge is power, right?
Absolutely. Awareness is our first line of defense. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll explore some specific case studies. We'll see how these scams actually play out in the real world. We'll also discuss some of the essential steps that you can take to protect yourself and really stay safe in this digital landscape.
Sounds like a plan. I'm ready to equip myself with all the knowledge I need to fight back against these digital con artists.
I'm right there with you. Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll arm ourselves with even more insights and strategies to stay ahead of the game.
I'm excited. All right, see ya then. All right, welcome back. In part 1, we really started to kind of peel back the layers of tech support scams and expose some of their sneaky tactics and the psychology that they use to exploit our fears. But now I think it's time to get even more specific and really dive into some real-world examples and see how these scams actually play out.
Yeah, let's bring it to life with some case studies. It's one thing to understand the concepts, but seeing how they actually unfold in real situations can be really eye-opening.
Absolutely. So let's start with the scenario that I think a lot of us have probably encountered before, those dreaded pop-ups.
Ah, yes, the classic pop-up scam. So picture this. You're in the middle of something important. Maybe you're working on a presentation or you're just about to finish up some online banking. And all of a sudden, this window pops up. It's flashing red. It's blaring an alarm. And it's claiming that your computer is infected with a dangerous virus.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. They're designed to make you jump out of your skin.
Exactly. They prey on that instinctual fear that we have of something going wrong with our technology. And this particular pop-up might even claim to have detected a specific type of malware, like a Trojan or spyware. It might even display a list of all these fake errors and warnings just to make it seem like your system is about to totally collapse.
So they're using fear and a lot of that technical jargon to just completely overwhelm us.
Yeah.
But wouldn't most people just close that pop-up and just move on?
You would think so, right? But that's where the psychology really comes in. The pop-up is usually going to include a toll-free number, and it urges you to call for assistance, like right now. And in that moment of panic, it can be really easy to fall into that trap.
Oh, man. So that toll-free number, it doesn't lead to, like, a legitimate tech support team?
No. It connects you straight to the scammers,
Yeah.
and once you call, that's when they really launch into their whole act. They might sound all friendly and concerned, they might use your name, they might reference details about your computer, just to really make it seem like they're legitimate.
It's crazy how convincing they can be. But wouldn't they need to actually access my computer to do any real damage?
You're right, that is their ultimate goal. They want to gain remote access to your system. And they have a few tricks up their sleeve to make that happen. So they might ask you to download a program that they claim will diagnose the problem, but in reality, it's actually a remote access tool, like AnyDesk or TeamViewer. These are actually legitimate tools when they're used for the right purpose. But in the hands of a scammer, they can be really dangerous.
So they're using tools that we might even be familiar with and twisting them for their own malicious purposes.
Exactly. Once they have that access, they can install keyloggers to record your keystrokes, which gives them access to your passwords and all your sensitive information. They can steal your files, they can lock you out of your accounts, they could even encrypt your data and demand a ransom to unlock it.
Oh, wow. It's like they're holding our entire digital lives hostage. It's scary to think how much damage they can do.
It really is, and that's why it's so important to remember that real tech support companies, they don't operate this way. They're not going to bombard you with all these scary pop-ups, demand immediate access to your computer, or try to pressure you into making these quick decisions.
Okay, good reminder. So pop-ups are one way they try to hook us. What about phishing emails? I know we touched on those a little bit earlier, but can you walk us through a specific example?
Sure. Let's say you get an email that appears to be from your bank. It has their logo, it has their official-looking email address. It even has your name and your account number right there in the subject line. The email might claim that there's been some unusual activity on your account, and it urges you to click on a link to verify your information.
Man, that sounds so convincing. I can totally see how someone would fall for that.
Yeah, that's the whole point. These emails are designed to be really deceptive. They play on our concerns about our financial security and use that to their advantage.
Right, so that link, it doesn't actually lead to my bank's website.
Nope. It actually takes you to a fake website that's designed to look exactly like the real thing. It might even have a URL that's almost identical to your bank's actual website, maybe just a couple letters or characters changed. And once you enter your login credentials on that fake website, you've just given all that information right to the scammers.
It's like they're setting a digital trap, and we're the unsuspecting prey. But how can we even tell if an email is actually legit or if it's one of these phishing attempts? I mean, they look so real.
They do. That's where attention to detail and a little bit of healthy skepticism comes in. So first, always check the sender's email address really carefully. Does it match the company's actual official email address? Look for misspellings, extra characters, or unusual domain names.
So, like if an email claims to be from mybank.com, but the sender's address is mybank.secure.net, that would be a red flag.
Huge red flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a classic phishing tactic. And never click on a link in an email unless you are absolutely sure it's legitimate. Instead of clicking, just hover your mouse over the link so you can see the actual URL that it's pointing to. Does it match the company's official website? If not, it's probably a scam.
Okay, so hover before you click. That's a good tip. It's simple, but it could save us from a lot of trouble. Now let's talk about social engineering. We touched on this a bit before, but can you give us an example of how scammers might use social engineering to manipulate someone in the real world?
Sure. Let's imagine that you get a phone call from someone claiming to be from your internet service provider. They might even spoof their caller ID, so it looks like the call is actually coming from your ISP's official number.
Oh, wow. So they're using technology to make their scam even more convincing.
Exactly. And they might say something like, we've detected some suspicious activity on your network and we need to run a security check. Or they might even mention specific details about your internet usage, like your IP address or the types of websites that you visit to make themselves seem more credible.
So they're using information about our online activity to try to gain our trust.
Yeah.
That's pretty unsettling.
It is. And once they've got you on the hook, they might ask you to download a program, grant them remote access to your computer, or even give up your login credentials. They might even try to intimidate you by claiming that you've been involved in some kind of illegal activity and that they need your cooperation to avoid, like, legal consequences.
Oh, geez. So they're preying on our fear of getting in trouble.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to remember that legitimate companies don't operate this way. They're not going to call you out of blue and demand access to your computer. If you're ever unsure about a call, just hang up and call the company back using their official contact information.
Good advice. So it's all about being skeptical, verifying information, and not being afraid to say no if something feels off.
Exactly. And remember, these scammers are always looking for new ways to exploit our vulnerabilities. They might try to capitalize on current events like a major data breach or a natural disaster just to make their scams seem more relevant and believable. They might even use pop culture references or trendy memes to try to make themselves seem more relatable and trustworthy.
Wow. So they're always adapting?
Yeah, they have to. They're always trying to stay one step ahead.
That's why it's so important to stay informed about the latest scams and be wary of any unsolicited contact, no matter how convincing it might seem.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've seen how these scammers use pop-ups and phishing emails and social engineering to manipulate their victims.
Mhm.
But what can we actually do to protect ourselves? Like, what are some concrete steps that we can take to avoid falling into their traps?
That's what we'll be exploring in the next part of our deep dive. We'll talk about the tools and the strategies that you can use to really build up your defenses and stay safe in this ever-evolving digital landscape.
Welcome back for the final part of our deep dive into tech support scams. We've uncovered their sneaky tactics, we've dissected all their psychological tricks, and even looked at some real-life examples. But I think it's time to kind of zoom out a little bit and consider the bigger picture. Like, what are the bigger societal implications of these scams? And what can we do to create a safer online world for everyone?
Yeah, it's a crucial shift in perspective, right? We've got all this knowledge, we've got all these strategies as individuals, but we need to think about how to actually tackle this problem on a much larger scale. Tech support scams are a global epidemic. They impact millions of people every year and cost billions of dollars.
It's pretty easy to feel overwhelmed by just the scale of this problem. I mean, where do we even begin to address something that's so widespread?
That's a great question, and I think the answer lies in a multifaceted approach. We need education, we need technological advancements, robust legislation, and maybe most importantly, a collective commitment to really creating a culture of online safety.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit. You mentioned education first. We talked a lot about individual awareness, but how do we translate that into a broader societal understanding?
Well, imagine if online safety was as ingrained in our education system as math or language skills. I think we need to start young, integrating digital literacy and critical thinking about online threats into school curriculums from elementary school all the way up.
It's like giving kids a digital safety toolkit right from the start.
Exactly. And it's not just about kids. We need to reach out to older adults as well. They're often targets of these scams. We can do this through community programs, workshops, online resources, make it accessible, make it easy to understand.
So it's about creating this culture where online safety is everyone's responsibility.
Exactly. We need to make it normal to talk about online threats, just like we talk about physical safety. And public awareness campaigns using all sorts of media can play a big role in just keeping this issue top of mind, reminding people of the steps they can take to protect themselves.
Okay, so alongside education, we need to address some of the technological factors that make these scams possible in the first place. It's not enough to just tell people to be careful. We need to make the digital environment itself more secure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about that. What can we actually do from a technological standpoint to combat these scams? It always feels like the scammers are one step ahead, exploiting new vulnerabilities and finding ways to bypass our security measures.
That's true. They're constantly evolving, but so is technology. We need to encourage and support the development of solutions that can actually detect and prevent these scams before they even happen. Think about things like artificial intelligence or machine learning algorithms. They can analyze all these patterns of behavior and flag suspicious activity in real time.
So it's like having a digital security guard that's constantly monitoring our online interactions and catches potential threats before they even reach us.
Exactly. We also need to make it easier for people to verify if websites and phone numbers are legitimate or not. What if there was like a browser extension that instantly cross-references a website with a database of known scam sites? Or a service that verifies the identity of a caller before you even answer the phone?
I mean, those sound amazing. But technology alone can't solve this problem, can it?
No, you're right. We also need robust legislation. It needs to clearly define these scams as illegal, establish really tough penalties for the people who perpetrate them, and provide ways for victims to seek justice.
So create a legal framework that makes it much harder for scammers to operate and easier for authorities to actually prosecute them.
Right, and legislation can help empower consumers too. We could require companies to implement better security measures, provide clear warnings about scams, and offer more accessible ways to report suspicious activity.
So giving consumers the tools and resources they need to protect themselves and hold companies accountable.
Exactly, and this needs to be a global effort. These scams operate across borders, so we need international collaboration to tackle it effectively.
It's like a worldwide game of whack-a-mole. You shut down one operation, another one pops up somewhere else.
That's a great way to put it. So we need coordinated efforts from governments, law enforcement agencies, and tech companies. Everyone working together to share information, track down scammers, and disrupt their infrastructure.
So creating this united front against these digital criminals,
Exactly.
making it clear that there's no safe haven for them anywhere in the world.
That's right. But even with all the best technology and all the right laws in place, we can't forget about the human element. We need to encourage a culture of collective responsibility where everyone feels empowered to report scams, share information, and really advocate for a safer online world.
Right, so it's not enough to just protect ourselves.
Yeah,
We got to look out for each other, too.
absolutely. Imagine if reporting a scam was just as common as reporting a crime that happens in the physical world. If everyone felt comfortable sharing their experiences, we could create this massive network of information. We could use that to identify patterns, track down these scammers, and ultimately protect more people from becoming victims.
Like a digital neighborhood watch.
Oh, I like that.
Everyone's looking out for each other, working together to keep our online community safe.
It really highlights how much potential we have to make a difference in this fight against tech support scams.
So to all of our listeners out there, remember, knowledge is power. We've given you the insights and strategies to protect yourselves, but we also challenge you to take that knowledge and share it. Talk to your friends, your family members, your colleagues. Report scams when you see them, and advocate for a safer online world for everyone.
Exactly. Together, we can create a future where tech support scams are a thing of the past, and the digital world is a place of empowerment, connection, and security for everyone.
That's a great goal to strive for. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into tech support scams. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and most importantly, stay safe out there.